Why did everyone at Fort Garrison laugh when she walked in? No one really remembered the first time they saw her, just that she seemed out of place. Too quiet for a military base. Too soft. Too old. A ghost that didn't belong among young soldiers burning with ambition and bravado. Dorothy Wilson was 52. Her uniform wasn't even proper military issue, just a gray contract security shirt that had lost its color after 100 washes. Her badge hung slightly crooked, her boots scuffed. She looked like someone still trying to hold onto relevance in a place that had moved on without her. At 5:30 hours, the air was still, heavy with humidity when the calm shattered. "Get your worthless old hideout here right now." Lance Rodriguez's voice hit like a gunshot. He was built like a wall, veins tight against his neck, bald head gleaming under the harsh floodlights at the main gate. 5 Navy SEALs stood with him, their Humvee parked deliberately at an angle so its headlights blinded the small guard booth. A childish game of dominance. Dorothy squinted against the glare, eyes green and sharp beneath the lines of age. Her hands, weathered, freckled, trembling slightly, lowered the clipboard she'd been holding. The tremor made them laugh harder. "Move it, fossil," Madison Hayes, one of the SEALs, shouted. Her phone was already out, recording, the red light blinking. "Look at this pathetic excuse for security, shaking like a scared little mouse." Lance slammed his fist against the booth window, hard enough to rattle the reinforced glass. "I said out, or are you deaf too?" Dorothy hesitated just long enough to read the formation. 5 operators evenly spaced, flanking the vehicle. Ambush spacing. Too practiced to be coincidence. She opened the door without a word and stepped into the pre-dawn haze. 50 yards away, Security Chief Thompson watched from his patrol vehicle, grinning. There she is, the legendary turtle of Fort Garrison. Takes her 5 minutes just to check an ID. His laughter carried across the asphalt. Lance didn't wait. He snatched the clipboard from Dorothy's hands, threw it down, and sneered. "Pick it up, that's all you're good for anyway." Dorothy bent to retrieve the papers, slow, careful, her knees protesting. That's when his boot came down on her shoulder. Not hard enough to injure, but enough to send her sprawling across the wet pavement. The laughter was sharp, cruel. Madison zoomed in with her phone. "World Star's gonna love this one. Grandma security guard eats dirt." Dorothy's palms scraped against asphalt, a thin line of blood blooming on her left hand. She didn't rise immediately. She stayed there just long enough to see. Rodriguez favored his right knee, old injury, poorly healed. Derek Chen, the team's tech specialist, had a bulge beneath his left arm, concealed carry, undeclared. Madison's phone wasn't a simple iPhone. The case hid a secondary lens, military grade. Dorothy filed each detail away, with precision born of long habit. "Get up, you useless waste of a uniform," Thompson barked from his truck. "Should have retired 20 years ago." She stood, steadying herself, hair falling forward to hide her face. Her hands gathered the papers, and while the others snickered, her eyes skimmed each one, reading faster than anyone watching could imagine. Vehicle logs, arrival times, ID numbers, something didn't fit. 5 Navy SEALs not assigned to Fort Garrison. No orders listed. No authorization for base entry at this hour. She said nothing. When they drove off, laughter fading into the dark, she simply returned to her booth, dripping coffee and silence. Inside, she pulled out a notebook. The cover was worn, the edges curled. Nothing about it looked important, but what she wrote wasn't random. Strings of numbers and symbols filled the page, layered with meaning only she understood. Her hands still shook, not from fear but from the damage that had never healed. A nerve agent exposure in Fallujah had done that. 3 teammates hadn't survived. She had. Barely. The tremor became her disguise, her camouflage, the perfect way to disappear. No one looks twice at the trembling. She set the pen down and watched the monitors. The base's official camera feeds showed nothing unusual, but her hidden network, the one she'd built over 8 years, saw everything. Infrared, motion patterns, vehicle telemetry. Her own system flagged the SEAL's Humvee with a quiet ping. The same vehicle had been at Fort Carson 2 weeks ago, El Paso before that, always near a dead operator from a long-buried mission, one that officially never happened. The code name came unbidden, Foxhound. Her old life, the one she'd buried beneath the name Dorothy Wilson. At 600, Marcus Williams arrived for his shift, a young guard ex-Marine, still too honest for this place. When he saw the blood on her hand, his face tightened. Those bastards again. We should report this. It's nothing, honey, she said softly. Her Midwest accent was disarming, gentle. Just boys being boys. But Marcus saw through it. He'd been in Iraq, had seen that distant stare before, the one soldiers used when they were calculating every possible threat in the room. "You're not just a gate guard, are you?" he asked quietly. Dorothy smiled, a tired, sad smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We're all just trying to make it through another day, Marcus. Some days are harder than others." When he left, she powered on the encrypted tablet hidden beneath her desk. The display came alive with camera feeds, her cameras, not the base's. Every corner of Fort Garrison, mapped and monitored by one woman no one noticed. The facial recognition algorithm pulsed again. Red alert. One of the SEALs matched a file from a classified network, a file that shouldn't even exist anymore. Her pulse steadied. The hunt was back on. By breakfast, the story of Gate Granny had spread across the base. Captain Patricia Hayes made sure of it. Her voice rang loud in the cafeteria, polished boots gleaming, medals perfectly aligned. "I don't know why they keep her on," she said, loud enough for half the room to hear. "She's a liability. Takes her 5 minutes just to check a badge." Laughter rippled around the tables. "More like 10, Derek Chen added, live streaming again. Hashtag Gate Granny strikes again." Dorothy moved through the noise like fog, silent, unbothered. She collected her tray, black coffee and toast, the same breakfast every day. Easy to eat, easy to leave behind. She sat in her corner seat, same one every morning. From there she could see the exits, the kitchen door, and the window overlooking the motor pool. 3 vehicles caught her eye. Black SUVs, sequential plates, mud patterns inconsistent with base terrain. They'd been off-road recently, but their logs said otherwise. Across the room, a janitor quietly mopped the floor. Tyler Morrison, Gulf War vet, worn eyes, steady hands. He slid a water bottle toward Dorothy as he passed. He didn't speak, just nodded once. Recognition between ghosts. She nodded back. The silence between them said more than words ever could. By 8:30, the SEALs were back. They didn't come for coffee this time. Lance's shadow fell over her booth as she ran ID checks. His tone was low, dangerous. "We need to talk, Grandma. That live stream this morning, getting too much attention. You're making us look bad." Madison stood closer this time, her fake smile gone. "Maybe you should find another job, something more age-appropriate. I hear Walmart's hearing greeters." Thompson's patrol car rolled up again, convenient timing as always. Perfect for someone who can barely stand. Dorothy didn't look up. Her tablet, the military-grade one, vibrated once in her pocket. A signal, a match. She didn't need to check the screen to know what it meant. One of the vehicles she'd logged last night had been spotted near a murder scene in El Paso, Mike Torres, her former teammate from Unit 82,000. Her blood went cold. They'd found another one. And now they were here. But she couldn't react, not yet. She played her role, the trembling, harmless old woman, the cover that had kept her alive for 8 long years. "I need this job," she whispered, voice cracking. "Please, I'm just trying to make it to retirement." Lance sneered, satisfied. "Retirement? Lady, you should already be in a nursing home. He shoved her shoulder, not hard, just enough to make her stumble. None of them saw the micro camera hidden in her wristwatch, streaming the entire encounter to a secure server in Langley. Dorothy stayed down a heartbeat longer than needed, long enough to see the reflection in Madison's phone, a black SUV parked too close to base perimeter, engine off, windows tinted, watching. They weren't alone anymore. By 9:45, Dorothy's real phone, the one hidden in her boot, buzzed in a coded pattern. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. Her chest tightened. The caller ID was impossible. Mike Torres. He was dead. She answered on the second ring. Authentication, Foxhound, Ghost Eye. Static, then a voice, distorted, mechanical. The list is in play, check your 6. They're already inside. The line went dead. Dorothy's pulse quickened, but her breathing stayed even. Years of training buried the fear under control. The list, the Foxhound list. Every operator involved in that mission, the one that had gone so wrong, the one buried under 8 years of lies. And now someone was hunting them. She looked at the gate logs again, cross-referenced timestamps, patterns, movements. Separate arrivals, coordinated spacing, intersecting fields of observation. They weren't visiting, they were watching. Watching her. Dorothy leaned back, her reflection staring back from the booth window, the tired, trembling woman everyone dismissed. They had no idea who they were looking at. Not Dorothy Wilson. Not the gate granny. But Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell. Call sign Ghost Eye. The woman who'd once seen through walls, through lies, through every enemy disguise. The woman the world thought was dead. And tonight, someone was about to find out why ghosts should never be provoked. What happens when a ghost realizes she's being hunted? Dorothy sat perfectly still, her reflection trembling in the booth glass not from fear, but from the faint vibration of gunfire memory echoing through her hands. Outside, Fort Garrison carried on as if the world hadn't shifted. Reveille sounded. Trucks rumbled by. The flag climbed the pole like it did every morning. But beneath that normalcy, something foul moved. She felt it. And ghosts always feel it first. Her notebook lay open beside her, filled with coded numbers and patterns only she could read. Every page told a story of 8 years spent pretending, watching, waiting. Each night she'd logged faces, vehicles, patterns, not for the base's sake, but for the unfinished promise she'd made to the dead. Now the names from the list were dying, one by one. Mike Torres, James Chen, Maria Santos. All Foxhound, all erased. And now someone had found her. Dorothy stared at the perimeter monitor. A black SUV sat just beyond the security line, engine off, windows tinted, no movement. Too patient, too quiet. Predators wait like that. Her trembling hand reached beneath the desk, brushing cold steel, a compact Glock 19 holstered under a false panel. She didn't draw it. Just knowing it was there steadied her pulse. 8 years ago, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell had commanded the best recon unit in Afghanistan until the mission that killed them all, or was supposed to. She crawled out of the wreckage, burned, broken, invisible. The kind of survivor nobody celebrated. The kind they buried on paper and paid to disappear. Dorothy Wilson had been born that day, a civilian contract guard stationed at the quiet backwater of Fort Garrison. But ghosts don't die easy. Morning dots. Marcus's voice cut through her thoughts. He stood at the door holding 2 cups of coffee. You look like you didn't sleep. Dorothy forced a smile. Sleep, a young man's game, sweetheart. He hesitated, studying her. Something's wrong, isn't it? Nothing I can't handle. She accepted the cup, set it aside untouched. Her attention drifted back to the SUV, now gone. Did you log the night shift vehicles? She asked. Marcus frowned. Of course, why? Check again, she said softly. Compare them to the duty roster. Look for anything that doesn't belong. He blinked. You think someone. I think patterns don't lie, she interrupted. People do. Marcus didn't press further, but his jaw tightened. He'd learned when not to ask questions. By mid-morning, the heat rose off the asphalt in shimmering waves. Dorothy's shift should have been routine, ID checks, badge scans, endless boredom, but every second stretched thin with awareness. At 10:00 hours, the base PA system crackled. Attention! Lieutenant Colonel Hayes requests Ms. Dorothy Wilson report to command. Every head turned. A few laughs broke out. "Uh-oh," one soldier whispered. "Grandma's in trouble again." Dorothy said nothing. She gathered her notebook, tucked it beneath her clipboard, and stepped into the sunlight. The walk to the command building was short, 300 meters of open ground that suddenly felt like enemy territory. Her boots scuffed the pavement. Every window, every truck mirror reflected fragments of her, watching. Inside, the air smelled of disinfectant and bureaucracy. The walls were lined with framed commendations, people who'd earned their glory in neat uniforms, not in dirt and blood. Colonel Richard Hayes waited behind his desk, his crisp uniform immaculate. "Ms. Wilson," he said without looking up, "please sit." She did. He lifted a report. "There have been complaints about your extracurricular documentation." Her stomach tightened. "Sir." "Vehicle logs, unauthorized recordings, surveillance outside your duties." His eyes met hers. "Care to explain why a contract security guard is tracking movements not assigned to her?" Dorothy lowered her gaze, played the fool. "It's boring on the night shift, sir. I just like keeping busy, pretending I'm a detective." He studied her a long moment. "You find that amusing, Colonel?" she asked quietly. Hayes's face twitched. "You'll address me properly, Ms. Wilson." She let her voice tremble. "Of course, sir." Hayes set the file down. "You're dismissed. And Ms. Wilson, be careful what you pay attention to. This base has dangerous elements. People get hurt when they see things they shouldn't." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. She rose, saluted by reflex, then stopped herself halfway. A slip, old habits. She turned for the door. His voice followed. "That's all, Ms. Wilson." Outside, she exhaled slowly. Hayes knew, maybe not who she was, but what she was. Someone had tipped him off. And someone had taken her notebook. Back in her booth, she found it gone. In its place lay a single sheet of paper. 12 names. Her unit. The Foxhound list. 3 names already crossed out. The 4th her own. Not Dorothy Wilson. Sarah Mitchell. Her mouth went dry. They were moving faster than she'd expected. She checked her surveillance feed, angles, blind spots, motion sensors. One of her hidden cameras was offline. Not damaged, disconnected. Someone had been inside her booth. Her pulse slowed, years of training taking over, fear and logic occupying the same breath. Whoever planted that paper wasn't just taunting her. They were warning her, or setting a trap. Either way, the message was clear. They knew the ghost was alive. By 1500 hours, clouds gathered, the kind that made Texas heat heavy and electric. Dorothy's tablet pinged again. A hidden feed from the motor pool came online. She saw Derek Chen, one of the SEALs who'd mocked her, walking through rows of vehicles, phone in hand, streaming for the fans. But in the reflection of a windshield, 3 men moved behind him. Civilian clothes, military stance. Not Americans. She zoomed in, tattoos on the neck, Cyrillic letters, Russian. Her stomach sank. Spetsnaz, or worse, private operatives trained by them. She'd seen their work before. Syria, 2012, the kind of men who made ghosts disappear for good. Her encrypted phone buzzed, a voice message this time. She recognized the voice instantly, even through static. "Hello, Mitchell." Her blood froze. Bradford, Colonel James Bradford, her old commander. The one who'd sold them out. "I know you're alive," his voice drawled. "You've been hiding well, but the game's over. By tomorrow, every name on that list will be gone, including yours." Her knuckles whitened. "How much did they pay you, Bradford?" "50 million. Weapons contracts. You and your team got in the way, nothing personal. 6 good people died because of you. And yet you lived," he said. "Always too stubborn to die properly, but that ends tonight." The line went dead. Dorothy lowered the phone. Her reflection in the screen was calm, too calm. She knew what came next. The setup, the cleanup, the kill. At 1700, shift change arrived. Marcus returned, but he wasn't alone. General Patricia Hayes, that Hayes two-star from the Pentagon, walked beside him. Dorothy froze. Patricia had been her commanding officer in Iraq, had pinned her Bronze Star, had written her KIA report 8 years ago. There was no way she wouldn't recognize her. The general stopped at the booth. "Ms. Wilson," she said evenly, "I understand there was an incident this morning." Dorothy kept her eyes low. "Just a misunderstanding, ma'am." "Look at me when I'm speaking to you." Her tone was sharp, the kind that demanded obedience. Dorothy lifted her gaze. Recognition hit like lightning. Patricia's face paled. For a heartbeat her mask cracked, but then just as fast it returned. "Carry on, Ms. Wilson," she said, stepping back. "We'll handle the incident internally." She turned and walked away, but as she did, her hand brushed her thigh in a subtle military signal. "Stay hidden, danger close, extract at dawn." Dorothy stood frozen long after she was gone. Hayes knew, and she was trying to protect her. Night fell heavy, the base lights flickered. Dorothy's cameras picked up movement, too much of it. 17 vehicles that didn't belong, 43 personnel not on the roster, 6 new surveillance points aimed toward the gate. The air felt different, thick, charged. Something was about to happen. Her encrypted phone buzzed again. The message came from Hayes herself. "Ghost Eye, they're coming for you. Bradford sold the list. Evac at dawn." Dorothy's fingers hovered over the keys. She typed back, "Negative, I'm staying." Because she couldn't run. Not while others would die for a crime they didn't commit. At 2100 hours, the news broke. Local veteran killed in apparent mugging, Mike Torres, age 49. The anchor's voice was calm, detached. They didn't mention that he'd been shot with 7.62 Russian rounds, that his fingers were broken after death, that the words "Ghost Eye Lives" had been written in his blood. The cover-up had begun. At 2200, headlights flashed against the booth. Lance Rodriguez, Madison Hayes, Derek Chen. Back again. But this time, their laughter was gone. They surrounded the booth. "Hey, Dorothy," Lance said casually, resting a hand on his hip. "We need to talk about that tattoo we saw earlier." Dorothy stiffened. Madison's phone wasn't streaming, it was scanning. Facial recognition app running quietly. "I don't know what you mean," Dorothy said. "Oh, come on," Derek pressed. "We enhanced the video, that wasn't some random ink. That was military, unit insignia. Want to tell us about that?" Dorothy stayed silent. "Who are you really?" Lance asked. Her heart slowed, she measured distance. Angles, 5 meters to the barrier, 6 to cover, 2 seconds to draw. Before she could answer, the lights went out. The base went dark. Not a flicker, a kill. Total blackout. Dorothy's body reacted before her mind caught up. She dropped behind the console, hand finding the shotgun hidden below. "Boo," Lance barked nervously. "What the hell is this?" Then came the gunfire. Distant, controlled, automatic. Not from training ranges, from the perimeter. The attack had begun. Dorothy racked the shotgun. Stay down. What the? Now. The first burst hit the booth, glass exploding into dust and shards. Madison screamed. Derek dove for cover. Lance drew his weapon but couldn't see a thing. They're here, Dorothy said, voice calm, commanding. 3-man team, southwest corner, suppressed weapons. Another 4 northeast. Move when I say. Lance turned, eyes wide. Who the hell are you? Someone trying to keep you alive. The second burst hit closer, the sound of bullets tearing metal. Move left, Dorothy shouted. They moved. And for the first time that day, the young soldiers realized something terrifying. The old woman they'd mocked, the trembling, quiet gate guard, was giving orders like someone who'd done this 100 times before. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was back in the war. How fast can a base turn from order to chaos? The first scream came from the east checkpoint, the second closer from the motor pool. Within seconds, Fort Garrison, home to thousands of trained soldiers, fell into a confusion that didn't feel like panic. It felt like control. Someone had planned this. Dorothy felt it in her bones. Rounds cracked through the night, short, professional bursts, not wild gunfire, precision. The Russians were inside. She crouched behind the shattered booth wall, the Remington shotgun balanced in steady hands. The tremor that made her look weak by daylight disappeared now. Adrenaline had always been her cure. Lance Rodriguez ducked beside her, sweat streaking the dirt on his face. "You're ex-military," he said between breaths. "No, more than that. Who are you?" Dorothy didn't answer. She peered through the splintered glass. Muzzle flashes stitched the darkness in rhythmic patterns, coordinated assault points. "This isn't random," she said quietly. "They're not attacking the base. They're erasing witnesses." Madison crouched in the corner, phone clutched like a weapon. Her voice trembled. "Witnesses to what?" "To betrayal," Dorothy said. "To men who sold their country." Another round slammed into the booth. Metal shrieked. Derek yelped, covering his head. Lance raised his pistol toward the gate. "I can't see a damn thing." "Don't shoot," Dorothy snapped. "You'll give away our position." He froze. The authority in her voice was undeniable. Not anger, not panic, command. She turned to Derek. "That tablet of yours, you still have thermal imaging." He nodded, fumbling it on. The screen came alive with red and orange shapes moving like shadows through the dark. 3 heat signatures, he whispered. 20 meters, closing fast. Dorothy moved. Smooth. Silent. She racked the shotgun once, a sound that carried memory of deserts, of ambushes, of the years when her hands had built legends instead of fences. She waited, one breath, too. A flash of movement, a silhouette breaching the outer fence. The first shot from Dorothy's shotgun shattered the night. Then another. 2 figures dropped, heat signatures vanishing from Derek's screen. The third hesitated, and that hesitation was fatal. Dorothy fired once more. Silence. Derek stared at her like she'd just rewritten reality. "That was impossible. You didn't even aim." Dorothy slid the shotgun's pump forward. "I've had practice." They moved as a unit now, though none of them would have believed it an hour ago. Dorothy led, her eyes scanning, every step deliberate. Lance stayed close, weapon drawn, covering her flanks. Derek followed, tablet raised. Madison brought up the rear, her night vision camera shaking. The lights were still out. Only emergency strobes flickered in distant corners, painting the base in flashes of red like a heartbeat slowing down. "What the hell is happening?" Madison whispered. Dorothy didn't answer. Her focus was razor-sharp. At the motor pool, the smell hit first, burning fuel and blood. Dozens of vehicles lined up like silent graves. In the crimson light, Dorothy saw bodies, security officers, technicians, all with single headshots. Executions, not combat. Thompson lay among them, The same man who'd laughed at her that morning. His face was calm now, empty. Dorothy knelt, checking his body. She didn't look at the face, she looked at his hands, his belt, his holster. She took his sidearm and spare magazines. "He won't need these anymore," she said softly. Lance stared. "You've done this before." She met his gaze. "Everyone has a past, Rodriguez. Some just bury theirs deeper." Derek checked his tablet. "There's more movement near the armory." "How many?" "Too many." Dorothy's stomach twisted. "They're heading for the weapons vault. They'll blow it, make it look like a terrorist attack. Bradford's covering his tracks." Madison's camera shook. "Bradford, who is that?" "Your commander's commander," Dorothy said. "The man who sold out his own soldiers for money." The words hit Lance like a physical blow. "That's not possible." "It's always possible," Dorothy replied. "Men like him depend on people thinking it is." The emergency frequency crackled over the radio. Marcus's voice, strained but alive. "All units, this is Williams. Unknown hostiles on base. Command authorizes weapons free." Dorothy grabbed the mic. "Marcus, it's me. Don't trust command. The base is compromised. Repeat, compromised." Static, then silence. Lance frowned. He didn't respond. "They've jammed communications," Dorothy said. "They're isolating sectors. We have to move now." She turned to Madison. "You still streaming?" Madison nodded weakly. "It's live, yeah, thousands watching." "Good, don't stop." "What, why?" "Because if we die here, someone has to see the truth before Bradford buries it." Madison hesitated, then raised her phone again, the red light steady. They reached the edge of the motor pool when Dorothy's encrypted phone buzzed. A timer appeared on screen. 3 minutes. "Derek," she said, "trace this frequency." He tapped furiously. "It's broadcasting from the water tower. Remote detonation signal." "They're going to blow the armory," she murmured. "Create chaos, blame terrorists, erase evidence." Lance checked his watch. 3 minutes isn't enough to get there. Dorothy's eyes flicked toward the horizon. "It is for one shot." She scanned the fallen bodies until she found what she needed, an M24 sniper rifle. She checked the scope, adjusted the zero, felt the weight like a memory reborn. "You can't make that shot in the dark," Derek said. "It's over 300 meters." Dorothy settled into position behind a wrecked Humvee. "I don't need light, I just need sound." Lance crouched beside her. "You can't even see the target." "He just fired," she whispered. Small correction fire, adjusting his transmitter. Muzzle flash, upper catwalk. She adjusted for wind, for distance, for gravity. Her breathing slowed, the tremor in her hands gone. 1 heartbeat. 2. The rifle cracked. Derek's thermal feed showed the target crumple. Signal lost, timer frozen. Lance exhaled in disbelief. That was holy. Dorothy rose, chambering the next round. That was necessary. But there was no time to celebrate. The sound of boots on gravel echoed around them, too many to count. 20+ heat signatures, Derek muttered, converging on our position. Dorothy thought fast. "We can't hold the motor pool, we'll get surrounded." "Then where?" Lance asked. "The command bunker," she said. "It's reinforced, has satellite uplink direct to the Pentagon." "That's across the base." "We won't go over," she said. "We'll go under." Lance blinked. "Under." "Tunnels," she said, "built in the 60s, Cold War relics. I mapped them years ago." Madison swallowed. "You've been planning this." Dorothy glanced back once. The burning vehicles cast long shadows over the bodies. "I've been waiting for this." They found the maintenance hatch behind a row of storage crates, half buried, forgotten. Dorothy wrenched it open, the hinges groaning. A rush of stale air rose from below. "You sure this goes where we need?" Lance asked. "Trust me," she said, descending first. The tunnel was narrow, lined with rusted pipes. Water dripped somewhere in the dark. The air smelled of metal and old dust. Madison's flashlight wobbled across the walls, illuminating graffiti, names, dates, unit numbers long faded. Derek's voice was hushed. "We're following a gate guard through secret tunnels while Russians try to kill us." "Not just any gate guard," Lance said quietly. "She's Ghost Eye." Dorothy stopped so suddenly, he bumped into her. "Where did you hear that name?" Lance hesitated. "At sniper school. They tell stories about a woman who held a position alone for 17 hours in Kandahar, saved 200 Marines. They said she died." "She did," Dorothy said. "Now keep moving." They emerged near the command bunker minutes later. The scene was chaos. Russian operatives surrounded the building, firing inward. The defenders inside, few but disciplined, returned fire in short, efficient bursts. Dorothy recognized the pattern. Someone trained was leading them. "General Hayes," she whispered. Lance scanned the battlefield. "We can't take that many." "We won't," Dorothy said. "We'll break their formation." Madison lifted her phone, still streaming. "Good," Dorothy said. "The world's about to see what's really happening here." Madison's voice trembled as she spoke into the lens. "This is Madison Hayes, live from Fort Garrison, Texas. We're under attack by foreign operatives. This is not a drill." The view count exploded. Thousands of comments flooded in. While the world watched, Dorothy positioned herself behind a barrier, rifle ready. She scanned, found the squad leader, the one barking orders through a radio pack. "Elimination of that link breaks coordination," she whispered. Her shot would have been perfect once, but tonight her hands trembled again, worse than ever. "I can't hold steady," she whispered bitterly. "The nerve damage." Lance placed a steady hand on the rifle. "Then we do it together." She looked at him, the same man who'd pushed her into the dirt that morning, his face now streaked with grime and guilt. "You spot," he said. "I shoot." Dorothy gave the corrections quietly. "Wind 3 clicks right, elevation 2 minutes up, target center mass." He breathed, found his natural pause. "Send it," she said. The shot rang out. The radio carrier dropped. The enemy formation faltered instantly. Inside the bunker, General Hayes seized the moment, leading a breakout with textbook precision. The firefight became a storm. Dorothy moved through it like she was born there, calm, efficient, commanding. For the first time, Madison's stream didn't mock her. It immortalized her. The trembling old guard was gone. In her place stood Ghost Eye, legend made flesh, scars and all. When the last gun fell silent, dawn began to stain the sky. Smoke curled from the burning motor pool. Sirens wailed in the distance. Helicopters approached. The base was in ruins, but alive. And in the center of it all, Dorothy stood bare-shouldered, her torn shirt revealing the tattoo on her back. An eye surrounded by lightning bolts. Below it, 6 names: the fallen of Foxhound. General Hayes approached, blood on her sleeve but posture straight. In full view of hundreds of soldiers and Madison's still streaming phone, she saluted. "Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell," she said, voice steady. "Ghost Eye, we owe you our lives." Dorothy returned the salute slowly. Around them, the survivors lowered their weapons. Lance sank to one knee, not mockery, respect, regret. "I'm sorry," he said hoarsely. "We treated you like trash and you were." "Get up," Dorothy said quietly. "Heroes don't kneel." Her voice softened. "They stand and learn." In the rising dawn, as the last fires died, Dorothy looked out across the base, at the soldiers who'd mocked her, now seeing her for what she was. A survivor, a guardian. Not the strongest, not the youngest, but the one who never stopped watching. What happens after a legend comes back to life? The battle was over by dawn, but Fort Garrison still looked like a war zone. Smoke drifted across the motor pool. Helicopters chopped the morning sky. Medics moved between the bodies with practiced calm, their voices low and tired. Dorothy sat on the back bumper of an ambulance, a medic wrapping gauze around her scraped hand. The adrenaline had left, and with it came the tremor, stronger now, raw from exhaustion. The sound of distant generators filled the silence she'd always feared most, the silence after surviving. Lance Rodriguez stood a few yards away, helmet under his arm, staring at nothing. Madison knelt beside a fallen guard, her phone forgotten on the ground, its red recording light still blinking. Derek leaned against a ruined Humvee, hands shaking, face streaked with soot and disbelief. They'd all seen what she'd done, and none of them would ever see her as Gate Granny again. General Patricia Hayes approached, her uniform torn, one sleeve dark with blood. "Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell," she said quietly. The name sounded strange after 8 years of silence. Dorothy lifted her eyes. "They're rounding up the surviving hostiles," Hayes continued, "but Bradford's missing." "Not for long." Dorothy reached into her pocket and handed Hayes a small drive. "Vehicle telemetry," she said. "I hit a tracker in Rodriguez's Humvee after his little coffee accident yesterday. Bradford used that vehicle for his meetings. GPS logs will show every place he's been." Hayes smiled faintly, the kind of smile that belonged to soldiers who'd run out of tears long ago. "You never stopped hunting, did you?" Dorothy shook her head. "I made a promise to the dead." By 900 hours, the chaos began to harden into order. Military police cordoned off sectors. Journalists hovered outside the gates. Somehow Madison's live stream had gone viral, 30 million views and climbing. The world had already given the event a name, the Ghost Eye Incident. Inside the base, a convoy of black SUVs pulled up near the command building. From the first vehicle stepped 2 Pentagon investigators and General Morrison, Hayes' superior. His expression was tight, his voice controlled. "General Hayes, Colonel Mitchell," he said, eyes flicking between them. "You're both to debrief immediately. Colonel Bradford is in custody, caught trying to access the base's secondary uplink." Dorothy felt something colder than satisfaction. Relief maybe, but hollow. "Alive?" she asked. "For now," Morrison said. "He claims he was framed." "He always did." Morrison studied her for a moment. "You understand, Colonel, that this entire situation is complicated. Technically, you're deceased." Dorothy almost smiled. "That's what keeps me useful." They led her to a temporary command tent, air-conditioned, sterile, filled with men who'd never set foot in Fallujah or Kandahar. Bradford sat inside, wrists zip-tied, hair gray at the temples, uniform pristine despite everything. He looked up as she entered, and for a second his expression softened. "Well," he said, "the ghost walks after all." Dorothy stopped across from him. "You sold us out. 6 good people burned because of you." "6 soldiers who didn't understand the bigger picture," he replied evenly. "You think patriotism keeps the lights on. Someone has to pay for the wars you people keep fighting. By selling weapons to the enemy." Bradford shrugged. "By making sure the right people profit. That's how empires survive, Colonel. You of all people should understand." Dorothy leaned closer. "I understand betrayal when I see it." He smiled, the same calm, arrogant smile she remembered from the desert. "Even if you kill me, you'll never stop it. The network's deeper than you think. Cut one head, 2 more grow back." She straightened. "Then I'll keep cutting." Outside the tent, the heat was rising again. Dorothy walked toward the medical area, the base a tangle of sirens, cameras, and half-spoken orders. For the first time in years, people stepped aside for her. Lance caught up to her. "They said you're going to D.C. for testimony." "I said no." He frowned. "Why? You could expose everything." Dorothy looked toward the horizon. "I've done enough exposing for one lifetime." I'll give them evidence, not myself. Lance hesitated, guilt shadowing his face. The things I said, the way we treated you. You didn't know, she interrupted softly, but knowing now means you don't get to repeat it. He nodded, eyes damp. You need help finding the others on that list. You won't have to do it alone. Dorothy studied him, the arrogance stripped away, replaced by something real. Maybe you already are helping, she said, by remembering. Madison approached next, clutching her phone like a lifeline. They're calling you a hero, she said. Half the country talking about you. The other half thinks you're a myth. Dorothy chuckled, a rough sound. Let them argue. Truth doesn't need belief to exist. Madison hesitated. I'm sorry, too. About the videos, I didn't see you. Dorothy placed a hand on her shoulder. Most people never do. That's why watching matters. Madison's eyes glistened. What are you going to do now? Dorothy glanced toward the booth, still standing by the gate, scorched but upright. Keep watching. By noon, the Pentagon took over the investigation. Dorothy and Hayes gave statements. Evidence poured in: emails, encrypted transactions, the Humvee's GPS data. Each thread led to another name, another officer who'd quietly bled the country for profit. When Dorothy finished her debrief, Hayes closed the file and exhaled. You realize you've just detonated the biggest intelligence scandal in 20 years. Good, Dorothy said. Maybe next time they'll vet their patriots more carefully. Hayes looked at her with a mix of pride and sorrow. The president wants to reinstate you. Full rank, back pay, your choice of assignment. Dorothy smiled faintly. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell died 8 years ago. Let her rest. Then what about Dorothy Wilson? She's still needed. Hayes studied her, then nodded. Whatever you choose, you won't be alone anymore. None of us ever were, Dorothy said quietly. We just forgot how to see each other. That evening, the base lowered its flag to half-mast. Names of the fallen scrolled on the monitors in the mess hall. Marcus stood beside Dorothy, hat in hand. They say the whole world's watching now, he murmured. They watch everything, she said. The trick is getting them to understand what they're seeing. He smiled. You think they'll believe a 52-year-old gate guard saved an entire base? Doesn't matter if they do, she replied. The truth isn't for them, it's for the ones who still serve. A breeze carried the faint scent of burned metal. The sun slipped low behind the barracks, painting the world in gold and smoke. For a moment, Dorothy felt the weight of years lift. The tremor in her hands returned, gentle now, a reminder, not a curse. Every scar had its purpose, every silence its echo. Later that night, she found herself back in the booth. The same cracked window, the same chair. Different eyes watching the world beyond the gate. A convoy rolled in: investigators, medics, cleanup crews. She checked their IDs one by one, voice steady. When the last vehicle passed, she sat back and opened her old notebook. On the final page, she wrote a single new entry in her code. Bradford captured but not finished. She closed the book. The sound of helicopters faded into the distance. In the reflection of the window, her own eyes looked back, tired but alive. Ghost Eye had risen again, not as a soldier, not as a myth, but as something harder to destroy. Proof that strength doesn't age and dignity doesn't need applause. A few hours before dawn, Hayes returned. They're moving Bradford to federal custody, she said. Morrison's escorting him personally. Dorothy didn't look up. That's a mistake. What do you mean? He's too connected, too valuable. They'll try to silence him before he talks. Hayes frowned. You think they'll risk killing a high-ranking officer on U.S. soil? Dorothy's smile was cold. They already risked invading one of our bases. Killing a traitor's just housekeeping. Hayes hesitated. What would you do if you were me? I'd keep my promise, Dorothy said. Guard the gate, let the wolves come, but this time be ready. An hour later, reports came in. Bradford's convoy had been attacked en route to D.C. 3 SUVs destroyed, no survivors. Officially, mechanical failure, explosion from fuel leak. Unofficially, cleanup. Hayes found Dorothy standing at the gate, watching the sunrise. "You were right," Hayes said softly. Dorothy nodded. "They always finish what they start." Hayes stepped closer. "There's talk of a congressional hearing. They want you to testify remotely." Dorothy didn't move. "They can have my evidence, not my face. The world needs ghosts. They remind the living to stay awake." Hayes exhaled. "Then what now?" Dorothy looked at the horizon, the long road stretching beyond the wire, endless and familiar. "Now I go back to work." As the first rays of light hit the scorched pavement, a new guard detail arrived. Young soldiers, laughing, yawning, unaware of the night that had almost erased them. One of them pointed toward her. "That's her, right? The old lady who saved the base." Dorothy smiled faintly. "Old lady, huh?" The kid blushed. "I didn't mean." "It's fine," she said, waving him through. "Just keep your eyes open. You never know what's coming through that gate." He nodded, suddenly serious. "Yes, ma'am." When he drove off, Dorothy watched his taillights fade. Then she whispered to the empty air. "Some wars never end. They just change uniforms." The tremor in her hand steadied long enough for her to raise her coffee cup in a silent toast. To the dead, to the living, and to the watchers who still kept vigil in places no one noticed. That night, Madison's video hit 50 million views. Clips of Dorothy's calm under fire spread across every platform. They called her the Gate Guardian, the ghost of Garrison, the invisible veteran. Dorothy ignored it all. In a small motel outside the base, she sat with her encrypted phone open to a single message from an unknown source. 3 more names from the list: El Paso, Norfolk, Okinawa. She stared at it for a long time. Then she reached for her notebook and began to write again. 8 years of hiding had turned into something else. A mission without rank or orders, powered only by conscience. Ghost Eye wasn't done. How long can someone live in the shadows before becoming one? Dorothy Mitchell, or what was left of her, left Fort Garrison before sunrise. No ceremony, no farewell. Just the low hum of tires over cracked asphalt and the slow return of silence. The road stretched endless through the desert, a ribbon of fatting light and ghosts. Her reflection in the windshield looked older now, lines deeper, eyes harder. Every scar told a story no one wanted to hear. She didn't mind. Stories were for the living. She was hunting something else. The message had given her 3 names: El Paso, Norfolk, Okinawa. 3 former members of Foxhound Support Network, technicians, intelligence liaisons, ghosts like her. All presumed dead. All apparently still alive. Or hiding just like she had been. She drove west first, toward El Paso, the place where she'd once been stationed before Afghanistan, before everything turned to ash. At the checkpoint outside the city, the border patrol waved her through without question. Her cover ID, Dorothy Wilson, retired logistics consultant, still worked. Old identities were like old weapons. They never truly failed, just needed patience. By the time the sun rose fully, she was parked behind a crumbling gas station 30 miles outside town. She checked her Glock, her suppressor, her tablet. No comms, no backup, just her. The way she preferred it. The target's name was Hector Alvarez, former data specialist, Foxhound Division. Last known address, a trailer outside Horizon City. Dorothy found him sitting on a porch that looked like it had given up on existing, his hands shaking as he tried to light a cigarette. He looked at her the way men look at ghosts, halfway between disbelief and fear. "Sarah," he rasped, "they said you were." "Dead," she finished. "So did they." He dropped the lighter. Jesus Christ, you shouldn't be here, they're watching. Who? The ones Bradford worked for, the contractors. You think it ended with him? Dorothy crouched beside him, scanning the empty horizon. You sent that message. He nodded. I had to, they've been cleaning house. 3 teams already gone. How many names left on the list? 7, maybe 8, depends who you trust. Dorothy met his eyes. And you? He laughed bitterly. You shouldn't trust me either. Then why warn me? Because the world needs to remember who we were, before they turned us into currency. His hand shook as he pulled a small flash drive from his jacket. Everything on here. Names, accounts, locations. Dorothy took it carefully. You know what they'll do when they find out you gave this up. I know, he smiled faintly, but at least someone will tell the story right. The shot came before he finished the sentence. Dorothy dropped behind the porch instinctively, gun out. A second round splintered the railing inches from her head. Silenced rifle, 7.62 caliber, long range. She crawled toward the trailer's edge, glass crunching beneath her knee. Alvarez lay still, cigarette still burning between his fingers. She whispered, "You're free now," and slipped into the desert scrub behind the property. The assassin was good, patient, disciplined, moving between positions like vapor. Dorothy had seen their kind before. This wasn't random. This was cleanup. She checked her watch, calculated the sun angle, wind direction. If he'd fired from the ridge, she had 20 seconds before reposition. She counted 15, then fired twice, controlled, deliberate. Silence. Then the faint sound of a body sliding down gravel. Dorothy moved in. The man was young, mid-20s, Eastern European, high-end gear. No insignia, no tags. Just a single patch sewn inside his vest, Wraith Group. She took his radio. Static, then a female voice speaking in Russian-accented English. Target neutralized, proceed to next. Dorothy's voice cut through, not quite. A pause, then laughter. Ah, the ghost herself, they said you'd surface. Who are you? Someone paid to erase mistakes. You're the biggest one left. Tell your client I'm not finished yet. Oh, I think you are, the voice purred. By tomorrow there will be nothing left to finish. The line cut. Dorothy pocketed the radio, her mind already tracing the next move. That night, she holed up in a cheap motel on the edge of the desert. The TV flickered with static news, fragments of her story replayed again and again. Headlines calling her hero, survivor, the ghost of Garrison. She muted it. She didn't feel like any of those things. She felt like a wound that never healed, too stubborn to close, too deep to ignore. On the bed lay the flash drive Alvarez had given her. She plugged it into her encrypted tablet. The screen filled with names. Contractors, officers, corporate accounts tied to defense deals. And one signature line repeated over and over, Wraith, Holdings Ltd. Headquarters, Norfolk, Virginia. Dorothy exhaled slowly. The second name on the message. 2 days later, she was there. Norfolk, rain slicking the asphalt, the harbor choked with fog. Cargo ships creaked like tired beasts in their berths. Dorothy moved through the industrial maze with quiet precision, hood up, gloves on, eyes always scanning. She learned long ago that blending in was the art of appearing exactly as unimportant as possible. The address led her to a decommissioned naval warehouse, security cameras blinking faintly through the mist. She bypassed the lock with an old code breaker from her field days. Inside, the air smelled of salt and oil. And beneath that, rot. Rows of shipping containers lined the floor, each marked with different corporate names. She pried one open. Inside, crates of unregistered weapons, tagged for export to foreign proxies. She opened another, communications jammers. Another, biochemical filters. Bradford's bigger picture. Her stomach turned. Every crate was a confession. Every label, a signature of betrayal. Footsteps echoed behind her. Dorothy turned, weapon ready, but stopped. It wasn't a mercenary. It was a woman, early 30s, soaked from the rain, holding her hands up. "Don't shoot," she said. "You're Sarah Mitchell, right?" "Depends who's asking." "My name's Anna Pierce. I'm with the Sentinel, investigative press. I've been following this story since Garrison." "Brave hobby." "Not a hobby," Anna said. "A warning, they know you're here." Dorothy's eyes narrowed. "You work for them." "I work for the truth. They killed my brother at El Paso, same day you found Alvarez." Dorothy studied her face, raw pain, honest fear. "It wasn't an act." "How'd you find me?" "You left the cameras alive." Dorothy frowned. "The warehouse feed." Anna nodded. "They wanted proof you came here to frame you for what's inside, terrorist possession charges. By tomorrow, this place will explode, and your name will burn with it." Dorothy looked around, the quiet hum of time running out. "How long?" "Maybe an hour." Dorothy's mind raced. "You got a car?" "Outside." "Then we're leaving, but we're not leaving empty-handed." They moved fast, Anna grabbing files, Dorothy swapping drives, photographing serial codes. Every click of the camera felt like a heartbeat against silence. They were halfway out when the first explosion hit. The shockwave threw them against the wall, ears ringing, dust raining from the ceiling. Anna screamed, "What the hell?" "Chain reaction," Dorothy shouted. "They're burning it all." They ran through fire, through smoke, through the sound of the past erasing itself. Outside, the rain turned to steam as flames licked the sky. Dorothy shoved Anna toward the car, jumped in after her. They sped away, sirens chasing them through the industrial maze. Behind them, the warehouse collapsed into itself, a black blossom of betrayal and proof. Anna gasped for breath. "You just became the most wanted woman in the country." Dorothy's laugh was bitter. "Wouldn't be the first time." They stopped miles down the coast, hidden under a bridge. Dorothy leaned back, soaked and shaking, staring at the fire reflected in the waves. Anna sat beside her, clutching the camera to her chest. "You could have left me," she said quietly. "I don't leave people," Dorothy replied. "Even strangers. Especially them." For a moment neither spoke. The rain softened. The fire in the distance faded to orange embers. Anna finally whispered, "You know they'll hunt you now." "I've been hunted my whole life." "So why keep fighting?" Dorothy looked at her, eyes hollow but alive. "Because someone has to remind them we still see." By dawn, the headlines had changed again. Former Colonel Sarah Mitchell, suspected in Norfolk explosion. Ghost Eye turns rogue. Public opinion twisted overnight. The hero became a fugitive. The truth, once clear, blurred back into propaganda. Dorothy sat in the passenger seat of Anna's rusted car, scanning the newscast without reaction. Anna turned down the volume. "You could clear your name if you just—" "I'm not here to clear anything," Dorothy said. "Names don't matter, results do." Anna hesitated. "Then what now?" Dorothy tapped the dashboard map, finger tracing east toward the Pacific. "Okinawa." Anna blinked. "You're serious?" "I finish what I start." Anna stared at her, the lines, the scars, the eyes that had seen too much and still refused to close. "You know," she said softly, "for a ghost, you're more alive than anyone I've met." Dorothy smiled faintly, watching the horizon. "Maybe that's the curse." The road ahead shimmered with heat and distance. She didn't know if she was chasing justice, redemption, or oblivion anymore. Maybe all three. But she knew one thing for certain. The war wasn't over. It had just gone silent. How far would you go to chase ghosts that don't want to be found? The flight to Okinawa wasn't official. No tickets, no manifests, no names. Anna had arranged it through an old journalist contact, a pilot who owed her a favor and knew how to keep questions to himself. They flew in silence, the hum of the engine drowning out everything Dorothy didn't want to think about. Below them the Pacific stretched endless, black and glassy under the moon. Dorothy watched the reflection of stars flicker across the waves and wondered when she'd stopped believing in constellations. Once those lights had guided her home. Now they only marked how far she'd gone. They landed at a remote airfield outside Naha under the pretense of delivering spare avionics. Customs didn't ask. Money and quiet papers still spoke louder than suspicion. From there, they drove along the coast road, a narrow ribbon of asphalt hemmed by jungle and sea. The air smelled of rain and salt, the horizon bruised with distant storms. Anna drove, her face pale from lack of sleep. Dorothy sat beside her, map unfolded on her knees. The Wraith Group's Asian branch operates out of the Ryukyu Trade Center, Anna said, reading from her notes. Front company, import-export, surveillance, weapons, data contracts. It's how they clean the money. Dorothy's eyes scanned the map, and inside. No one knows, but a few whistleblowers vanished after trying to expose it, including a man named Kenji Mari. Dorothy looked out the window. Then that's where we start. Anna hesitated. Sarah, what if they're expecting you? Dorothy smiled faintly. Then they'll finally get what they've been waiting for. The city was quiet when they arrived, too quiet for a place that usually never slept. Typhoon warnings had cleared the streets. The wind carried a soft electric hum, the kind that whispered of storms and consequences. They parked 2 blocks from the trade center, a tower of steel and mirrored glass rising out of the harbor. Every floor glowed faintly blue, sterile and indifferent. Anna adjusted her camera strap nervously. You sure about this? Dorothy checked her Glock screwed on the suppressor. No, that's why it'll work. They entered through a service corridor. No guards, just automated locks. Dorothy hacked one with an old digital skeleton key. Inside, the air was cold, recycled corporate. Every wall bore the same logo. Wraith Holdings, Global Solutions for a Safer Tomorrow. The irony almost made her laugh. They reached the data wing, where rows of glass-walled offices stretched like mirrors of lies. Anna filmed quietly, every click of her lens a promise of exposure. Dorothy moved like she belonged there, shoulders back, steps certain. You could always tell who'd lived under orders by how they carried silence. They found the security hub, a small room pulsing with screens. Dorothy slid into a chair, plugged Alvarez's drive into the console. The system flared to life, lines of code spilling across the monitors. Her fingers danced with memory, typing commands she hadn't used in years. Anna watched in awe. You really were intelligence. Dorothy didn't look up. I was everything they needed me to be, until I was. The data began to compile, offshore accounts, government contractors, foreign buyers. And then a file blinked open, Project Seraph. Dorothy frowned. What the hell is this? She clicked it open. Inside, footage, military grainy. Her own face, Fort Garrison surveillance from the night of the attack. Anna stepped closer. That's you. Dorothy scrolled down. Lines of text appeared beneath the video. Subject Sarah Mitchell, alias Dorothy Wilson. Objective, field test successful. Subject reactive integrity confirmed. Proceed with phase 2. Her stomach twisted, field test. Anna's voice shook. They didn't attack the base to kill you. They attacked it to see what I'd do. Dorothy's breath came slow, controlled, but inside the old fire started to burn again. She clicked another file. More footage. Bradford Morrison, General Hayes, all labeled Project Seraph, Oversight Council. Dorothy's hands clenched around the mouse. They set me up. Anna whispered, horrified, they used you. No, Dorothy said quietly. They built me, and now they want to finish what they started. The door burst open. Two men in suits entered, weapons drawn, not soldiers, not police. Corporate security, cold eyes, no insignia. Dorothy fired first, two silent shots, precise, efficient. One fell instantly, the other staggered, clutching his side. Anna froze, camera shaking. Oh my God. Dorothy grabbed her arm. Move. They bolted down the corridor as alarms blared. Red lights strobed. The building sealed itself in descending lockdown. Dorothy slammed her shoulder into the stairwell door, forcing it open. They ran down flight after flight, their breath loud against the echo of distant gunfire. By the time they hit the ground floor, the building was a trap. Security swarmed outside, vehicles boxed in the exits. Dorothy turned to Anna. You trust me? Anna nodded without hesitation. Then jump. Before Anna could ask, Dorothy crashed through the nearest window, dragging her with her. Glass exploded outward, wind and rain swallowing them as they fell 2 stories into the harbor below. The impact stole their breath. Cold water closed over them like a fist. Dorothy surfaced first, dragging Anna toward the shadows under a dock. Don't stop, she hissed. They'll search the water. They swam until the lights faded behind them, and the storm swallowed the sound of everything else. Hours later, soaked and shivering, they crawled onto a rocky shoreline miles away. Anna coughed seawater, gasping, You're insane. Dorothy smiled weakly. You're welcome. They collapsed against the rocks, breathing hard. When Dorothy finally sat up, she handed Anna a small waterproof drive. I copied the files before they came, she said. Everything's here. Anna took it reverently. Project Seraph, what does it mean? Dorothy's gaze drifted toward the horizon. It means they never stopped experimenting. They took the lessons from Foxhound from us and turned them into a doctrine. How to build loyalty, break it, rebuild it again. Program soldiers who don't question orders, who fight wars without conscience. Artificial intelligence? Anna asked. Dorothy shook her head. Human intelligence, twisted. She looked at her trembling hands, the tremor worse now, as if her body knew it had been tampered with by something unseen. What if the damage wasn't from the crash, she whispered, but from them? Anna stared. You think they did something to you? Dorothy's voice was distant. I stopped feeling fear a long time ago. I thought it was training. Maybe it was. A long silence passed between them, the kind that carried more weight than any confession. By morning, the storm had passed. They made their way into a small fishing village, where time seemed to move slower, kinder. An old woman let them dry their clothes by the fire without questions. For the first time in days, Dorothy allowed herself to breathe. Anna sat beside her, quiet, thoughtful. Finally, Anna spoke. You know, for someone who's been running from the system her whole life, you're still fighting to fix it. Dorothy stared into the flames. I'm not trying to fix it, I'm trying to keep it honest. Even if it kills me. Anna smiled faintly. You talk like someone who's already made peace with dying. Dorothy's eyes softened. Dying, easy. Living with what you've seen, that's the hard part. They fell silent again, listening to the waves against the rocks. Outside, the sea shimmered with pale light. For a fleeting moment, Dorothy felt something she hadn't felt in years, stillness. Then the old woman handed her a folded note. For you, she said in broken English. Dorothy opened it. Inside, a single line of text typed. Phase 2 begins, watch the skis. Her blood ran cold. Anna saw her face. What is it? Dorothy folded the note slowly. They're escalating. Meaning? Dorothy looked up, eyes hard again. "It's not just me they're after anymore." That night, the two women sat on the edge of the pier, staring out at the dark horizon. Far off, lightning pulsed behind clouds, silent, steady, rhythmic. Not lightning. Flashes from low-orbit satellites aligning in formation. Dorothy recognized the pattern instantly. "Military launch codes," she whispered. "They're activating something." Anna gripped the edge of the pier. "How do you know?" "Because I wrote that sequence once," Dorothy said quietly. 8 years ago." Anna's voice shook. "Then this isn't over, is it?" Dorothy shook her head. "No, it's just beginning." She stood, the sea wind whipping through her hair, her silhouette framed by thunder. For a long moment, she said nothing, only stared into the storm she knew was coming. Then she turned to Anna. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we start running again." Anna hesitated. "Running to what?" Dorothy's voice was calm, almost tender. "To remind the world what happens when people stop paying attention." The night closed around them, two women against an empire built on silence. One holding the camera, the other holding the gun. And above them, unseen by anyone else, the satellites blinked like unblinking eyes, the ghosts of every secret humanity had chosen to forget. Dorothy whispered to the sea, "If they want a ghost, I'll give them one." And the wind carried her words away, across an ocean that had seen too many wars. What happens when the hunter realizes she's been hunting herself? Dorothy hadn't slept in 2 days. The fire in her chest, the one she used to call purpose, had turned into something else. A dull ache. A quiet dread. She and Anna had been moving constantly since the note arrived. From the fishing village to an abandoned telecom station up in the Okinawan hills. A place left behind by time, yet still humming faintly with old military tech. There, surrounded by rusted antennas and flickering monitors, Dorothy finally began to decode the files from Project Seraph. Anna sat behind her, recording everything with her camera, trying to stay calm though her face betrayed exhaustion. "What are we looking for exactly?" she asked. Dorothy didn't answer immediately. Her fingers hovered over the keys, eyes tracking lines of encrypted data. "Proof," she said finally. "Proof of what they built and what they're about to unleash." The files unfolded like a confession written by machines. Project Seraph, Global Stability Initiative. Objective: develop adaptive field operatives capable of functioning beyond conventional loyalty structures. Method: psychological reconstruction through trauma exposure, identity segmentation, and neurochemical conditioning. Prototype subjects: Operation Foxhound survivors. Anna leaned closer. "That's you." Dorothy nodded slowly. "They called it adaptive loyalty. They break soldiers in ways that make them self-correcting, turn pain into obedience." Anna scrolled further down. "But this data's global. London, Moscow, Beijing, it's not just American." "It never was," Dorothy murmured. "Foxhound was international before the war ended. The program was never about defense, it was about control." Her voice hardened. "They've been creating soldiers without countries, without morality, just directives." Anna swallowed. "And they tested it on you." Dorothy's gaze went distant. "I thought I survived by will. Turns out I was designed to." The rain outside turned heavy again, washing the world in gray. Anna lowered her camera. "If this is true, if this program still exists, they could be running hundreds of you." Dorothy looked up sharply. "No, not me." Anna hesitated. "You know what I mean." Dorothy's voice was calm but cold. "There's a difference between being broken and being built. They broke me. They built the others." Anna sat back shaken. "So what do we do?" Dorothy turned to the window, watching lightning crawl across the sea. "We show the world what they've done, but we do it on our terms." The plan was simple in outline and impossible in execution. Dorothy would extract the final data logs from the old satellite uplink buried under the telecom station, a relic from the Cold War now rerouted through Wraith's network. It was the last living artery of Project Seraph. Anna would transmit the footage through multiple civilian channels simultaneously. Once it hit the open net, there would be no erasing it. But first, they had to power the system manually. Dorothy stood, stretching sore muscles. "Stay close. Once I start the generator, we'll have 15 minutes before they detect the reactivation." Anna followed her out into the storm. The rain hit like bullets, cold and relentless. The generator sat half-buried beneath an old radar dish, covered in moss and rust. Dorothy crouched beside it, pulling back the panel. "You ever think about what happens when this is over?" Anna shouted over the wind. Dorothy didn't look up. "It doesn't end, truth never does." Anna's voice cracked. "You can't keep carrying all of this, Sarah. You're one person." Dorothy paused, looked at her, the same haunted steadiness that had unnerved generals and saved lives. One person's all it ever takes to start a fire. She flipped the switch. The machine groaned to life, coughing light into the storm. Back inside, the station came alive with hums and static. Screens blinked awake, mapping connections across continents, bright nodes pulsing like a nervous system. Dorothy began routing data streams, her voice calm over the rising tension. "Anna, start recording the uplink monitor. Once it reaches 80%, send the packet. Don't wait for me." Anna hesitated. "Wait, what do you mean, don't wait for you?" Dorothy didn't answer. Her focus never wavered. She felt it the moment she powered the generator. The subtle vibration in her chest. The pulse in her hands. The faint, irregular flicker in the overhead lights that matched her heartbeat. They weren't just tracking the station. They were tracking her. At 62% upload, the first breach alert sounded. "Unauthorized uplink detected," a metallic voice droned over the intercom. "Termination sequence initiated." Anna's eyes went wide. "They're shutting us down." Dorothy typed faster, rerouting code with a soldier's precision. "Keep it steady." "I can't hold the signal." "Then record everything," Dorothy barked. The storm outside screamed against the walls. Power surged. The lights flickered again, and this time Dorothy's vision flickered with them. For a brief second, she wasn't in the station. She was back in Kandahar. Her squad screaming. The explosion. The fire. Then silence. She gasped, snapping back. Anna grabbed her arm. "Sarah, what's happening?" "They built a feedback loop," Dorothy said through gritted teeth. "Neural resonance keyed to my bio pattern. Every time I fight them, it hits back." Anna's voice broke. "They're using your own brain as a kill switch." Dorothy nodded, forcing herself to stay upright. "Good. Then at least it means they still fear me." At 78%, the screens began distorting, data bleeding into static, files rewriting themselves in real time. A voice came through the speakers, smooth and calm. "Colonel Mitchell, we told you to stay buried." Dorothy froze. "Bradford." "Alive and well," he said. "Did you really think we'd let you end our greatest achievement?" "Achievement," she spat. "You turned soldiers into property. You call it slavery, we call it order, a world without chaos, without dissent, the perfect equilibrium." Dorothy's voice dropped to a whisper. "You mean a world without choice." Bradford chuckled. "Choice is a luxury the dying can't afford. You of all people should understand." Then the signal cut, and the monitors filled with one final warning. "Manual override required, core access needed." Anna turned to her. "That's in the sublevel right." Dorothy nodded grimly. "Basement access, 10 minutes before this whole place resets." Anna grabbed her arm. "We can't both go." "Then stay," Dorothy said. "Upload the footage when I give the signal." "No," Anna whispered. You're not doing this alone again. Dorothy smiled faintly. I'm not alone, you're my witness, that's what matters. The sublevel was a tomb of old machines and dripping pipes. Dorothy descended alone, flashlight trembling in her hand. The deeper she went, the louder her pulse became, until it synced perfectly with the hum of the servers. She reached the main console, inserted the flash drive, and began the manual override. Then she saw a file nested inside the system, labeled with her old call sign, Ghost Eye Active. She hesitated, then opened it. Lines of code appeared, followed by biometric data. Her fingerprints, DNA markers, neural scans. And at the bottom, a single phrase. If subject reactivates Seraph network, execute directive, self-termination. Dorothy whispered, so that's your failsafe. The console pulsed red. A soft beep echoed through the room. Warning, neural sync initiated. Pain exploded behind her eyes, white-hot, all-consuming. Her knees buckled. Through the agony, she heard Bradford's voice again, almost tender. You were never meant to outlive the mission, Sarah. She pressed her forehead to the cold metal floor. You should have learned by now, I don't follow orders. And with the last of her strength, she ripped the core wires from the console. The light died. The pain stopped. Then everything went black. When Dorothy woke, the rain had stopped. The generator was silent. Anna knelt beside her, tears streaking through the dirt on her face. You're alive, she whispered. Dorothy groaned softly. Depends on your definition. Anna held up her tablet. The upload completed. It's everywhere now, news outlets, encrypted forums, the dark net. They can't erase it. Dorothy stared at the ceiling, the faint light of dawn creeping through cracks. Then it's done. Anna nodded. You did it. Dorothy's voice was almost a sigh. No, we did. By midday, the world began to change. Governments denied involvement. Corporations went silent. The Wraith Group's assets were frozen. But the damage was already done. People were seeing, as Dorothy had wanted all along. She and Anna sat outside the ruined station, sharing the first quiet moment in what felt like years. Anna broke the silence. You could disappear now, start over. Dorothy smiled faintly. You ever try to disappear from a world that just found you again? Anna tilted her head. Then what will you do? Dorothy's gaze drifted toward the horizon, where the clouds were parting and the sea shimmered with new light. I'll keep watching, she said softly, because someone has to. That night in cities across the world, screens flickered with the leaked footage. Faces once hidden in shadows appeared in plain view. Politicians, generals, contractors. The myth of control began to unravel. And somewhere in Okinawa, on a quiet hill by the sea, a woman with tired eyes and trembling hands finally set her weapon down. Anna sat beside her, recording the moment without words. Any last thoughts for the camera? She asked. Dorothy smiled, a weary human thing. Sometimes truth isn't loud, she said. It just refuses to die. How do you say goodbye to a war that never officially began? Dorothy Mitchell watched the morning sun rise over the Okinawan coast, slow, gold, forgiving. Waves rolled against the rocks below like the earth itself was breathing again. For the first time in years, she felt no orders pressing down on her shoulders, no voices barking in her ear. Just the wind, and Anna's quiet breathing beside her. The storm had passed, but its echo still lived in the air, that strange silence that follows when history changes shape. The world had seen everything. The leaks spread faster than any of them could predict. Project Seraph became a word whispered in every government, every newsroom, every home that had ever lost someone to a war no one could justify. Some called her a hero. Some called her a traitor. Most just called her what she had always been, a ghost. The Pentagon denied the program's existence. The corporations behind Wraith folded overnight, their executives vanishing into offshore exile. And yet Dorothy knew you can't kill an idea. You can only unmask it. And unmasking it had cost everything. 3 days had passed since the upload. Dorothy hadn't slept much. The tremor in her right hand had worsened, spreading now to her shoulder, her jaw. The doctor in the village told her the neurological damage was advancing, old trauma mixed with new interference. She didn't tell Anna. Some things weren't meant to be softened by words. Instead, she spent the hours walking the shoreline, boots sinking into the wet sand, her reflection trembling with each step. Every grain, every wave, every scent of salt reminded her of places that didn't exist anymore. Kandahar, Bagram, Garrison. All ghosts. Just like her. That afternoon, Anna found her sitting on the rocks, the small handheld camera resting on her lap. "You're recording yourself now?" Anna asked, managing a tired smile. Dorothy shook her head. "No, just the sea. I like how it never lies." Anna sat beside her. "You know, the videos everywhere. They're calling you the woman who saved humanity from itself." Dorothy laughed softly. "Humanity doesn't need saving. It just needs reminding." Anna studied her. "You could come with me, you know. We've been offered asylum in Sweden, protection. You'd be safe there." Dorothy looked out toward the horizon, a freighter cutting through the sunlight, small against the vastness. "Safe," she repeated quietly. "I don't think I'd know what to do with that anymore." Anna's eyes softened. "You could try." Dorothy smiled faintly. "You sound like my mother." Was she right often? Only when I stopped arguing. They both laughed, a fragile sound but real. That night the sky burned with stars, clear and endless, the kind she remembered from desert nights. Dorothy sat alone outside the small hut they'd been staying in, a mug of black coffee cooling in her hands. She'd always found comfort in rituals, the small, stubborn things that tethered her to being human. Coffee, laces tied tight, weapon cleaned before sleep. Now only one of those habits remained. She opened her notebook, the same one she'd carried since Fort Garrison. The pages were worn, ink smudged, corners frayed. She flipped to the last page, the one she'd left blank on purpose. At the top she wrote slowly, carefully, her hands shaking. "Mission complete." Then below it, after a long pause, "But the watching never ends." She closed the notebook and let her hand rest on it for a moment, like a prayer. The next morning, Anna woke to find Dorothy gone. Her bed was neatly made, her few belongings folded in quiet precision. On the table sat her notebook, her badge, and a short note written in her slanted, soldier's handwriting. "Anna, you've done more than anyone I've known who ever carried a weapon. Keep the truth alive, protect it, don't let them bury it again. And if they ever call you crazy, tell them you learned from the best. Adi." Anna sat there for a long time, staring at the note through tears that wouldn't stop. Then she looked toward the sea. Far off near the edge of the cliffs, she saw a figure, small, steady, walking into the wind. Dorothy's silhouette, rifle slung across her back, coat fluttering like a flag that no longer belonged to any nation. Anna tried to call out, her voice broke. The figure didn't turn. She watched until Dorothy disappeared beyond the ridge. Days turned to weeks. Governments fell, investigations multiplied. The name Sarah Mitchell became shorthand for resistance in a world addicted to comfort. Students painted murals of her face across walls in Berlin and Buenos Aires. Hackers used her call sign Ghost Eye as a banner to expose corruption. Soldiers whispered her story before deployments, half legend, half prayer. And yet there were no confirmed sightings. Only rumors. A woman seen in Ukraine, helping refugees cross the border. A figure in Yemen guiding aid convoys through old minefields. A sniper reported in Sudan, taking out mercenaries before vanishing into the heat. No one ever got close enough to ask her name. No one ever needed to. Then one night in early spring, Anna received a package. No return address. Just a weathered metal case with a single word etched on top: watch. Inside was a small drive and Dorothy's old dog tags. Anna plugged the drive into her laptop with shaking hands. A video began to play. Dorothy sat in what looked like a bunker, dim light, concrete walls, the faint sound of rain above. She looked older, weaker, but her eyes were clear, steady. "Anna," she began, voice calm as ever. "If you're watching this, it means I've finally run out of time. Don't worry, it's not regret. It's just gravity catching up." She smiled softly. "You once asked me why I keep fighting. The answer's simple: because silence is contagious. It spreads when good people stop paying attention, and I couldn't live with that." She looked down for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "I used to think dignity was something you earned. Turns out it's just something you protect quietly, stubbornly, even when no one notices." Her eyes lifted again, direct, unwavering. "You're the next watcher now. Keep them honest. Don't become me. The world doesn't need more ghosts, it needs more witnesses." Dorothy leaned forward slightly, her voice barely a whisper. "And remember, sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts." The screen went black. Anna sat frozen, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, distant and patient. She looked at the dog tags in her palm, cold, heavy, unyielding. Then she whispered the words Dorothy had lived by. "Keep watching." She uploaded the video to the same network Dorothy had used. Within hours, it was everywhere. Within days, it became a movement. Project Seraph was gone. But the watchers, the ones Dorothy had inspired, were just beginning. Somewhere in a forgotten corner of the world, an old security booth stood by a gate that no longer guarded anything. Inside, a single chair faced the horizon. On the console, a coffee cup sat half full, still warm, though no one was there to drink it. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like a breath, carrying with it the faintest echo of a voice. Eyes open, heart steady. And though no one saw her again, the world never stopped feeling her presence. In every quiet act of courage, every truth spoken against fear, every watcher who refused to look away. Because some legends don't need statues or medals. They live in the choices we make when no one's watching. And somewhere beyond sight, a woman who'd been mocked, broken, erased, finally rested. Not in fame, not in history, but in peace.